So one of my a lot of us have guilty pleasure things, right? So one of my guilty pleasure TV shows, I don't know why, but almost all of them are surround reality TV. I don't know why. Maybe maybe it's me escaping reality by going to reality TV. But one of these shows, I haven't watched it in a while. One of these shows was a TV show called Bar Rescue. And the Bar Rescue, it was always the same setup. Bar Rescue, it's one of those kind of genre like Homestead Rescue where the expert rescuer comes in. So Bar Rescue is always the same story. It was this bar that was struggling. They were in debt. They didn't know how to run a bar. And here, all of a sudden, they bring in John Taffer. John Taffer is the expert rescuer. And again, it's always the same. They set up cameras in the bar and he's going to watch. He's doing a stakeout. And it's one night and he's in his Escalade out in the parking lot with maybe his assistants. And I sent some people into the bar to see what they're doing, right? And he watches until he can't take it anymore. He's like, I got to go in there. And he comes in and he just yells at everybody. He yells at the staff, yells at the owners, he yells at everyone out of here. And he just flips tables. And the next day is always the same thing. The next day he comes in and he's like, we kind of got off on the wrong foot last night, didn't we? I'm like, yeah, because you just flipped out. Anyways, it's good TV. But I've noticed this, that almost every Bar Rescue episode, there's at least one of three villains. I say villains, like the obstacles, right? It's either the staff. The staff is incompetent or they're thieves or something's going on. The leadership, sometimes they don't know what they're doing. It's like, my dad had this bar and he died, so now I'm running the bar and they're in debt and they're bankrupt, all these things. Or it's the facility itself. Like it's disgusting, it's run down, it's not the right vibe, their processes aren't working. So it's one of those three things. And what John Taffer does, he's the expert rescuer, right? He trains up the staff. Okay, we're gonna show you how to do all these things. He coaches the leadership. And he says, okay, I'm gonna get you set up so that you can have success. Or he fixes the facility. In fact, the rescue is like this renovation where it's like they get all this new equipment, maybe a new vibe for the bar that's more, to the locale, that kind of situation. It's kind of a fun show, right? Just kind of cathartic. But my favorite part of the show is sometimes they'll do this thing where they'll come back a year later, right? And they're like, okay, where are they now? And I just love seeing this, because sometimes it works. Sometimes it's like, yeah, we're firing on all cylinders now. Your rescue, John Taffer, has rescued our bar. But sometimes the where are they now isn't what people were hoping it would be. Again, after all this, after being this completely free gift, this person comes in, John Taffer, and they don't have to pay anything, but they get coached. They don't have to pay anything, but they get trained. They don't have to pay anything, but they get a whole new renovation of the bar, and it's all done completely for free. And then the question, of course, is, after all this, did it help? After all this massive gift, did it help? What does life look like now? What is life after like? This whole Lent, we've been following this series called Autobiography. And the reality, of course, of Autobiography is that every life is a story. And every person is an author. And the question of our lives is this, who will we become at the end of the story? And there are some times in some stories where you get a bonus chapter. And the bonus chapter answers the question, what is life like after? What's life after? The gospel today is a heartbreaking gospel of the story of Lazarus. But that's not just the story of Lazarus. It's the story of Martha and Mary as well. And you can imagine, because many of you have been there. Here's Mary and Martha, and their brother is sick. And you can imagine they're praying. You can imagine that they're just, okay, we just got to hold out hope. We just got to pray. In fact, they even send word to Jesus. Like if Jesus would just show up, our prayers be answered. And then you imagine, here's Mary and Martha, who are with Lazarus at the moment of his death. And many of you have been there, right? Many of you have been in that place where the person you love, they take their last breath. And it's that moment. And there's something, haven't you been in the situation where it's not just the moment of death, but it's those moments after death where you're just kind of like, I don't know what to do now. We've been praying. We've been holding out hope. Now they're dead. And there's that sense of waiting, waiting for the hospital, people to come in, waiting for the coroner to show up or the funeral home to come. It's just like there's that sense of just the moments after death. And then, of course, there's the acceptance of, okay, when you leave the hospital or wherever they had passed away and you go back to your home. And there's that moment of acceptance. the moment of reality where you're trying to figure out the practical decisions. Okay, what do we do now? And then there's the funeral. And then there's the burial. And then everything's done. This is what Mary and Martha are. There was the funeral. There was the burial. And now the story's over. Lazarus' story's over. This Lent, we've also been following the story of the prodigal son. And we have followed that younger son, right? The younger son who, the picture we get of him is he's been given so much. He has a father who loves him. And he goes to his father and he asks for what he wants. And he gets what he wants. It's remarkable. And then what does he do? He does what he wants. And then he gets what he's chosen. This is the reality, right? Is he takes this property that was given to him, and then he goes and he does whatever he wants. And then he gets what he deserves. Here's a younger son, right? But that he wants to live life on his own terms, and then he ends up on his own. And he is starving, and he hires himself out to work for one of the local farmers to tend the swine. And his story is over. And then, in both the story of Lazarus and the story of the younger son, we're introduced to the reality of grace. And this changes everything. When we're introduced to the reality of grace, here's Lazarus, right? His story is over. And then Jesus. Here's Lazarus. His story is over. And then grace. So what happens? In this gospel today, we see the heart of Jesus. Now, in two ways. We see the heart of his identity, and we see the heart of his heart. What I mean by that is, we see the heart of his identity. He is God. He's the Lord over life and death. And we also see the heart of Jesus. Not just the heart of his identity, but the heart of his heart. That he lets his heart be broken because he cares. And so what does he do? He goes to the tomb. Roll away the stone. They roll away the stone. And Jesus utters 3 words. He simply says, Lazarus, come out. And then John writes, John who was there, writes, and the dead man came out. You can imagine, again, this is amazing. This is so incredible that the last line of today's gospel is what? Because of this, many people came to believe in Jesus. And that's the story, right? That's the story. So here's Lazarus who has been restored. Here's Lazarus who, by God's grace, because of God's love for him, because of God's power over life and over death, he gets a bonus chapter. But there's this line, it's a really interesting line, where Jesus, as Lazarus comes out, Jesus tells people, he says, untie him and let him go. And I want to ask the question, go where? And now, have you ever thought about this? This is a huge moment in Lazarus' story, right? He was dead. He's alive again. And then what? Have you ever wondered, like, what did his life look like after? What was life after for Lazarus? Have you ever wondered that question? That's the question, like, where are they now, right? It's the bonus chapter. It's what when you're writing an autobiography, when you're writing a story, it's what they call the epilogue. Like, and this is the crazy thing. Maybe the first time you ever heard that term epilogue, a lot of our students, the first time they ever came across that word epilogue was the end of book 7 of the Harry Potter series, right? Then you guys know this one where they get to the end of book 7, Deathly Hallows, and it's like 19 years later. And they're back at, the platform 9 3/4. They're getting the Hogwarts Express, and it turns out that Harry ends up marrying Ginny, and Ron ends up marrying Hermione, and they have kids, and they have cousins, all these kind of things. And it's one of those situations where, like, okay, after the big thing that happened, this is the bonus chapter. After the big thing that happened, here's where they are now. And after the big thing that happened, it's the epilogue. Epilogue actually comes from the Greek, right? Epi, which means upon or after, and logos, it's the afterword. What happens afterwards? What happened to Lazarus after this? Or even what happened to the prodigal son after this? I mean, right, his life is over, but then grace happens. He says, I'll get up and go to my father. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Treat me as one of your servants. He gets up. Well, he's still a long way off. We know this story. His father sees him, runs to him, throws his arms around his neck, kisses him. The son has his speech. We've heard about that. And then the father does something incredible. It's all grace. The younger son's story was over. His story was done. And then the father says, quickly, and he does 4 things. He says, quickly, get the finest robe and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger, sandals for his feet, and then they're going to slaughter the fattened calf and celebrate. I think sometimes we can hear the first 3 things. The last one, the fatted calf, that's just celebration, right? But the first 3 things that the father gives his prodigal son, the finest robe, the ring, and the sandals, they all mean something. I mean, because think about this. In the ancient world, in the first century, you don't have a closet full of fine robes, right? In your family, you have one robe that's nice. Like you have one finest robe. And the father says, okay, get that robe, the best thing we have, and put it on this kid. It's this free gift. It's grace. The best thing we have, put it on him. And then the ring would have been like a signet ring, right? They would have the insignia of the father, or the insignia of the family crest. Remember that when the son left, he didn't just want to take have his own property. He didn't just want to have money. He wanted to have nothing to do with the family, nothing to do with the father. And the father says, get that family ring and put it on his finger. And then sandals for his feet. Why? What's that mean? Well, sandals for his feet is servants, they go barefoot. But sons have sandals. And so all 3 of these gifts, it's all grace. That finest robe, what's that? It's a sign of honor. Here's this kid, he comes back in shame. But the father says, no. Get our finest, the best thing we have, put it on him. That's a sign of honor. The ring, it's a sign of authority. And the sandals, it's 2 things. Not only is it a sign of freedom, basically, here's sandals. If you want, you can walk away again. It's also a sign of sonship. So there's the finest robe, that's honor, the ring, that's authority, and the shoes, that's a sign of sonship. You see, all of this is grace. None of it is earned, right? None of it's deserved. In fact, the opposite is what he deserves. But here's what the son is. He is fully restored, and he's given a bonus chapter. He's given an epilogue. And this is the thing. This is what grace does. It's what grace has done for us. It's because we realize it, because what Jesus has done for us in his life, death, and resurrection, because it's all what he's done for us. Because of that, we who are lost, we can be found. Because of what Jesus has done for us, we who are dead can come to life again. And because of what Jesus has done, we who have wandered away or run away, we can be restored. And this is the reality. This happens every time we go to confession. Every time you and I allow the Father to love us, allow God's grace to meet us, what happens is we're given a bonus story, a bonus chapter where we realize our story isn't over. This is the epilogue. And here's the question. What does life look like now? For this whole Pray 40, it's been called the return. What happens after? What is life like after there's the return? Because we know this. We know that the younger son, he doesn't come home because he loves the father or he loves the family. He comes home because he's desperate. The question is, will he stay? When he's no longer desperate, will he stick around? Why will he stay? How will he stay? The question is, because the grace that was given to him is free and unearned, what does he do with it? What will he do with the bonus chapter? What will he do with the epilogue? What will he do with grace? I tell our students this story sometimes. A bunch of years ago, it was summertime. And I was at my parents' place it's like 2.5 hours away on the lake. And I had to get back to Duluth for a daily mass in the afternoon. And so I'd spent the morning on the lake. It was just a great kind of like a relaxed time. And so I hopped in the car. I'm driving back to Duluth. And I just had my shorts, sandals on, that kind of situation, not dressed, clerics and everything. And I was going a little over the speed limit. And so I got state trooper, and it pulls me over. So I'm like, shoot, dang. And so he's like, going a little fast. Where do you live? Where are you going to? I'll tell him all the things. He says, well, what are you in such a hurry for? And I felt so badly. Because first he said, what do you do? And I was like, I'm a priest. And he's like, okay, what are you such in a hurry for? And I was like, I feel so badly. I'm not giving you a line. I'm actually trying to make it back in time for mass. And he's like, oh, okay. Gets back to his squad car, walked up to my car after a bit. And he says this line that just like has lived in my brain ever since. He walks up and says, well, Father, the state's going to give you some grace today. And he just gave me a warning. And he said, on your way kind of situation. I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. That's incredible. I was so grateful for the grace that was freely given to me. I did not deserve it. I deserved a ticket. He didn't give me a ticket, gave me some grace. And I remember pulling away from the shoulder and getting back on this road. And about 10 minutes later, I was in pain. I was tortured because I don't know if you ever know this, but 55 miles an hour is really, really slow, especially when you're used to driving like 9 over. It's one of those situations where I was happy to be given the grace, but I didn't want to drive like I was given grace. I was happy to be given the grace, but I didn't want to live it. What does life after grace look like? Question, what does the next morning look like for the younger son? This massive celebration, they give him the finest robe, the ring on his finger, sandals on his feet, fatted calf, incredible, staying up late. What does the next morning look like? I imagine it's like this. He wakes up the next day, and where does he wake up? Well, he doesn't wake up in the servants' quarters. He doesn't wake up in the guest house. And this is so important for us. He hasn't been hired by his dad. He's been rescued. He's not hired. He's not one of the servants, right? His dad even says this. He's not one of the servants. So he's not punished. He's not on probation. We'll see how it goes. He doesn't have to perform. So he's not in the servants' quarters, but also he's not in the guest house. Like, this is important. He doesn't return to like laziness or entitlement or indulgence. Basically, he doesn't wake up in an all-inclusive resort where it's just like, I get to hang out here now. I'm a pampered prince right now. That's not. He hasn't been hired, he's been rescued. And he's not a guest. He's been restored as a son. And he's not hired as a servant, and he's not doted on as a guest. So this is the reality. That you can look at all those gifts. Now, all those gifts, they're not given with a condition. Like, you can have this if you promise to be good. But this is a real relationship, and the Father's essentially saying, these are yours, not with a condition, but these are yours if you want them. Because that's what grace does. Grace restores. Restores what? It restores the relationship. But we know this. Every real relationship has real rights, right? He's given the robe. He has honor now. He's given the ring. He has authority now. He's given the sandals, right? He's a true son. So every real relationship has real rights. But we also know this. Every real relationship also has real responsibilities. The Father gives him dignity, but it's the dignity of having a purpose. You now have a place in this family. Again, it's the thing is, grace does not remove responsibility. Grace restores responsibility. That in this Father's house, this son, he's not given conditions, he's given belonging. And if this is going to be a real relationship, he has to have both real rights and real responsibilities. Again, remember, he's not in the servants' quarters, he's not in the guest house, he's in the family house. What does that mean? That means he's living with the Father. It means he's living with his brother. So we discover this. We discover the epilogue. We discover that life after means life with. And that's the secret to the epilogue. Life after, it means life with. So every time you and I have been rescued, every time we've gone to confession, every time we've been restored by Jesus, we're restored without conditions, but we're not restored without responsibilities. That our bonus chapter, our epilogue, looks a lot like this. It looks a lot like life with the Father. And it looks like life with our brothers and sisters. It looks like life in the church. Once again, life after is life with. And this is the last thing. Again, I really love those stories where they have the, where are they now? I love the bonus chapter. I love the epilogue. I wonder, what was Lazarus' epilogue? There's some theories about his epilogue. There's some small, lowercase t traditions about his story. Some people say he went to become a bishop. We don't know ultimately. I can imagine that Lazarus's bonus chapter, his epilogue, was very unique. I imagine he did not go back to living life like he did before grace. But when it comes to the younger son, I can imagine trying to ask that question and answer that question, where are they now? If you saw like across the screen, 1 year later, what might life look like? If life after actually looks like life with. Here's the epilogue. It's early in the morning. The younger son wakes up and he smells coffee, smell of coffee wafting down the hallway from the kitchen. And so he gets up, walks out of his room, walks into the kitchen. There's his father. His father making coffee, making the eggs, saying, "Hey, you want some breakfast?" "Absolutely." "Okay, great. Put some bread in the toaster. Have a seat. How do you want your eggs? Want some coffee?" "Yeah, have a seat. Here's your mug." They sit down to have some eggs, some toast, have their coffee. The father's like, "Hey, how'd you sleep? I heard you and your brother were up really late. What were you guys talking about so late last night?" "I was talking about this and that and the other thing." "All right, okay, cool." And the younger son says, "Okay, Dad, what's going on today?" And his father says, "Actually, you know what? I need you to go next door. Our goats keep getting mixed up with our neighbor's goats, and it's going to be a hard conversation. I need you to go over and talk with them about this. You think you want any help with that? Do you need me to come with you?" Younger son says, I don't know. I think I can handle it, but it'd be great if you were there." "Great, no problem. We'll go together. After that, we're going to pick up your brother. We got to go to the back 40 because the cistern just has all these leaks. We got to fix that." "Great." Life after is life with. And this could be your epilogue too. This could be our epilogue. I mean, it's what I invite us to all do. This is us today or tomorrow morning. My invitation every day this week, when you wake up restored. What I mean by that is wake up knowing you've been given, by God's grace, a real relationship with the Father, which means there's real rights and there's real responsibilities. My invitation all this week is when you wake up, just turn your heart, turn your attention to the Father. Turn your heart and your attention to Jesus. Imagine if you're one of the disciples and you're camping with him for 2.5, 3 years. Imagine waking up, Jesus is right there across the smoldering fire, and you wake up and just look at the Father, you look at Jesus. Hey, where are we going today? What are we doing today? My invitation every day this week, when you wake up, just let the first thing you do when you wake up, just move your heart to the Father, move your attention to the Father, and just say, "Okay, Dad, what do you want today? What do you want us? What are we going to do today? How do you want me to live today?" And then live. Not as a servant, not as a guest, but as a child of your Father. Because the truth is, because of grace, this is your bonus chapter of your autobiography. Because of God's grace, this is your epilogue. And because of God's grace, your life after is life with.
You don't have to stay close. As long as you're somewhere out there, that's enough for me. I don't need to hold you near me, don't need promises to keep. Just the thought that you are breathing somewhere in this world I see. Even if I'm not beside you, even if you never know, there's a quiet kind of comfort just in knowing you still glow. I don't need forever, I just need you to exist. You don't have to stay with me, you don't have to feel the same. Just as long as you're still out there, calling softly through my days. You don't have to look my way, you don't have to be my home. It's enough to know you're living in a world I'm not alone. I won't chase you through the distance, won't disturb your chosen life. I'll just keep you in my silence, like a star that shines at night. Through the dark and through the blue, I still think of you. You don't have to stay with me, you don't have to feel the same. Just as long as you're still out there, calling softly through my days. You don't have to look my way, you don't have to be my home. It's enough to know you're living in a world I'm not alone. I don't need to be your light, I don't need to cross your mind. All I need is just the truth that you're somewhere still alive. You don't have to stay with me, you don't have to feel the same. Just as long as you're still out there, calling softly through my days. You don't have to look my way, you don't have to be my home. It's enough to know you're living in a world I'm not alone.